Hi, everybody.
Hi,
No?
Dr.
Okay.
Rick.
The B is for
Nick.
bargain. Yeah. Uh, hello. Oh, no, God, this is awful. I just, I just lost it. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Jaunty Mantis, a podcast of creative questions for curious gamers. I'm one of your hosts, Jesse.
I'm one of your hosts, Maddie.
I am somehow now three of your hosts, Chris.
All three of us combined like the Triforce of Legend to bring you creative questions for curious gamers. But before we talk about those, hey guys, we did something different last week. So, what have you been up to in gaming this week?
Is that me? Oh shit. Okay. This week I was snowed in, as I suspect Jesse was as well, mostly.
Yeah.
So I installed Tabletop Simulator and got a bunch of people to play Magic the Gathering Commander with me.
Ooh.
That was fun.
How was that in Tabletop
Also,
Simulator?
it's pretty good. It's the UI, you pick it up pretty quick. I recommend it. You can play all kinds of games on there. I have a traveler's tabletop set up in there. I didn't even realize I'd ever installed.
Did you play it in VR mode where you actually like picking up the cards with your.
I keep threatening to do that, but I haven't done it yet. I also worked on the Traveler game, which we've made characters for and customize their merchant ship. And hopefully this Sunday we'll get to start playing, provided no more snow. Pretty excited about that. Even though we're probably only going to play like 2 or 3 sessions, I spent hours putting together a Roll20 campaign for it. The cool
Oh,
landing page and journal entries for all the planets.
the deep work. It's one of those like, how many sessions do you need to plan on playing to make session zero kind of maybe not worth it?
I just love that system, man. And there's something about playing a sci-fi setting that makes me want to use digital tools like uh, Roll20 even more. You know what I mean?
Well, I've also been working with digital tools.
Tell me more.
I will. Thank you for asking. So a while ago for a humble bundle, I bought like Worldographer, also known as Hexographer, which, you can sort of auto-populate like a map and do all sorts of stuff at the kingdom level and the world level and like have zoom ins and notes. And basically it has a tile set that makes your map look like something that would come out of a basic D&D Mystara box set with all those, sea tiles and everything on a hex map. And so I made a 12 by 12 map for Mythic Bastion Land. And then I imported it into the Foundry rule set. And then I set up some cool lighting effects and some music and like filled out the journal with all the notes I would need to run it. So I'm going to be ready at any point, Maddie, to run Mythic Bastion Land, one of my 2026 gaming goals for our Sunday night group in a lull between the adventures of the, you know, Quest Lords of the Crystal Crown.
Yeah, it'll be a pretty long lull. What can I say? You know, I'm designing them to be like little mini adventures, that take place after, a couple of people have had a chance to run games. So you'll have your shot. You'll have
Cool.
your shot.
What have you been up to, gaming wise?
Well, like you just said, I've been running my D&D 5e game. I originally planned for it to be about 3 to 5 sessions, and we're gonna blow right past all of that. And I'm excited to see how far this is going to go. When we started this game, we used that D&D trivia box and answered a question that had an answer of like which one of these magic items is not actually in Dungeons and Dragons. The answer was the robe of the Sea Prince. And I was like, I'm designing these mini adventures just kind of be like ridiculous fun that we have playing D&D. Like no story unless the characters like want to make a story and may have an experience or whatever, but I'm not planning for a story. And then as we are getting started, somebody said, "Hey, can you put the robe of the Sea Prince in the game somewhere?" And I was like, "Story it is." So
Hell
now
yeah,
we
we
have a
can.
story. Yeah, now we have a story in my D&D 5e game, and it seems to be going pretty good.
Yeah, I think I was on a rare one on our last game session. I had so much fun.
You don't normally have fun?
No, I mean I know God damn it. Yes, normally it's a tedious slog through a Sunday evening with some of my best friends, but this time uh I really like playing this Muppet character, and
Hmm.
we had a conversation. There's an NPC named Little Hans who's a little kid, maybe. Uh, and he was telling me about all the tragedy he'd endured, and my character has big feelings, so I started bawling, and he told me to suck it up. Uh, and
He rolled really badly on his charisma check. He
the
was trying to communicate to the NPC about, what was going on with him. And I said, roll a charisma check to see if this has an effect on this kid whose mom died years ago and his dad has been missing for 3 weeks.
I rolled like a two or something. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, how do I handle this as like his character is like opening his heart to the NPC and he got such a bad charisma check. How do I handle this? And I was like, well, this kid's just going to tell him to get over it and toughen up because the world isn't fair.
But that was all the prompting that I needed to put what I had kind of been thinking of my character's like narrative arc into play, because I was like, one of my main things with this, other than getting to play a giant Muppet, is that I was like, let's have him utterly overreact to a normal life event, and that's his sort of character's impetus to adventure and learn more about the world, is that he just really doesn't think that death is fair, because his grandmother passed peacefully surrounded by her family of old age. And he's like, that's not right. And so, being an artificer, he is going to make a suit of armor so powerful that he can fight death itself and win. So, nobody else ever has to go through that. And so that was where I started at. In the meantime, shout out to YouTube content creator Pointy Hat, who has a great video series about liches where he makes a lich archetype for each character class. And the artificer one, the necrotomaton, is, I was like, well, that's a direction I could go with this. So this good-natured Muppet idiot's on the path to lichdom, and getting to reveal that in this conversation. And basically the whole reason is this little kid in a shitty little town in a tavern told him to suck it up, and he thought that was great advice. And the way he interpreted that was to turn himself into an immortal killing machine. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's badass.
I like
The
it.
party has been doing this thing, Chris, where I don't know if Jesse has told you about this, where I had a little bit of a rough start to the game overall, and I was like, we should play music and have them introduce their characters, right? Like, and Jesse made this comment like it was like a TV show, and that the music was like the opening credits to like an A-Team style TV show, and the music is track number one from the Lady Hawk soundtrack. Which, if you've never heard of Lady Hawk, please go check it out. It's
Oh, it's a classic.
amazing, I swear.
I always think of that as a soundtrack that did not age well either. But maybe now that I'm more into synth of the
Dude,
various waves,
you will not be
perhaps.
disappointed. It is that movie and its soundtrack is both terrible and awesome at the same time. And so I played that track, and then they went through each one of their characters, describing like their A-Team style intro, and each one of them has done, like the funniest shit, and it pays off to the point where they're enjoying it so much that somebody was, I think it was Patrick, was like, hey, if for some reason game isn't available, any time, we could just do this for 2 hours, just like rotate describing what their characters are doing to the music of Lady Hawk. So rousing success all around.
Yeah, and particularly shout out to Kurt, who like has just been like killing it with like putting like three picture frames on it. We've really leaned into that the camera sees kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I do want to give credit. I got this idea from Mastering Dungeons, Like this is not a Jesse original. So it's just so much fun to be like, what's the dumb little vignette that like shows, what your character's doing? And it's a lot of fun. And the music, the like it is very of its time and place. Like 80s dramatic horn section swelling triumphantly. The only problem
Hmm.
is like the first two times we did it, poor John was last in the order, and so the music stopped halfway
It
his
trails off.
narration. Yeah, it trails
Yeah.
off and he's like still going. And
I think I'm going to reserve the end for Patrick because his character is so creepy and unnerving that the trailing off of the music kind of really works with how he's finishing it his part out. So, you know, works for me.
cool. What is the band I found while making soundtracks for that Foundry Mythic Bastionland game? Wolf Tide, I think, is dungeon
Cool.
synth. It's pretty fun. It's very moody. And I tried to show my wife this last time. I was like, "You want to see something cool?" And she came in, and her hearing, I guess, is not great. So like it was playing and it was like this low subsonic like roar, and I just like looking up at her like, and she's like, what am I supposed to be hearing, or like what is supposed to be happening? And she's just like, I'm like waiting for the music to get more audible, and she got mad at me. Thought I was trolling her, and I was like, no, this is it. She's like, I don't know this program. Like I don't know, this is what the players will see, you have to use your words. I'm like, fine.
You have to use your words.
You say that a lot around here. So yeah. Well, cool. It's a great game. I'm having a ton of fun playing in it. So, um, okay. Well, let's get on to our main topic for tonight. And I think this is Chris's question. And the question basically is, how do you do foreplay?
Yeah, that's not how I was going to phrase it at all. That's incredible. Thank you for
Seriously,
that.
I need to know. I just
I'll write you a detailed email and send it later.
would you recommend reading the Book of Erotic Fantasy?
No, the actual question is just how, where, and what do you prep for your sessions? What can we learn from each other and learn about each other through foreplay or RPG session prep?
And the Book of Erotic Fantasy.
Man, this is an energy I'm not ready for tonight.
Sorry, it's gonna be here the whole
A little
time.
more brandy, maybe I'll be there.
I liked the
I'm
druid spells
overheated. Oof.
in the book. I did not like the Book of Erotic Fantasy.
You read
Maddie,
it?
how do you feel about the Book of Erotic Fantasy? The fans want to know. I'm
We
watching
have
the live
fans?
responses. Yep.
I wouldn't dare look at that thing. I thought it was an abomination.
Yeah, that's one of like the very few 3.5 books we did not have in the massive collection in the early 2000s when we lived together.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, where do you do your prep, man? Like, is it just in this hole you're sitting in right now, or do you have a specific
Uh,
spot?
I like most of my social media on the toilet.
I gotta step it up, man. Getting me every time.
So yeah, no, it's in this hole with access to my mini leather bound volumes. Um so yeah, it really depends on the system. This is like one of the most intense preps that I've done recently was in my car on the drive home from work where I was just practicing in NPC voice. So if I was going to break it down, this is like the key, like how I look at going about prep. Um, for the vampire game, I write notes like right at the end of the session about next time they want to do this because I straight up ask them, and I'll like write things we didn't get to that had been there from last time. And then I start with the NPC because one of the things I'm trying to do with the vampire game is just have more fun playing more characters. So I start with the NPC, and I think in this scene, what are some little phrases that I can just have at the ready? Because so much of Vampire is that social interaction that I really want to just have something queued up so I can drop it on the fly. And in the scene I was prepping for in this, One of the characters, uh, played by Sci-Fi Mark, hates his sire so much. Like he thinks she's the worst. And it's been kind of a running joke about how the other like members of the coterie are like, "Oh yeah, she's really nice. I really like her." And like I hate her so much. So it's like they're going to be in this social scene, and I know Mark's character is going to be super catty, and I need to be ready to be catty back. And so I was just coming up with cutting phrases and responses and trying to figure out what the voicing and characterization was. And that was like the whole 30-minute drive home for me. This rigorous prep. So I think general advice, prep where the inspiration takes you. And if you don't feel inspiration, like have a spot where you're like, this is where the work gets done. So that's one
Hmm.
general point of advice. How about you, Maddie? Where do you prep?
What is the spot where the work gets done? That's in your car?
What,
On that occasion.
I mean, like for me, like at my desk with my books, this would be my official prep spot. But like, as you're going through the day to day at work and wanting to think about something other than a spreadsheet, I mean, that's not personal to my experience at all. Uh, as you get ideas, like don't be afraid to consider that part of your prep and don't lose them. Like,
Hmm.
Hmm.
write it down, put it in a note on your phone. I do a lot of my prep on actual in a notebook that I carry around for, prep needs. I am not great at using digital tools to prep.
Why is that?
I don't know. I've tried, my brain is not fundamentally organized like that. So, like, I've tried, I started up in my prep game with Flourish's Lazy DM. And so I found from his blog his like Notion template, and like,
Hmm.
I tried using that, but I just don't have the discipline to do it in that very, very formalized way. Um, what really works better for me is to just have a couple key phrases in a notebook to like improv and kind of wing it off of. But I mean, from playing games with me, I'm way more interested in winging it than I am mapping it out. So whatever can help me be successful in winging it, whether that is that characterization or that is a scene that I think is going to be really cool, that's what I'll jot down. Or just like a question to be answered by the next play session. So like I do come in with like maybe one notebook sheet with like 5 sentences on it and like, let's go. But that doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason why I ask is because the way I prep now is completely different than the way I used to prep. And it's because I am the primary caregiver for my offspring. I'm the daytime caregiver. And there's another reason that led me to this, when taking care of my son, there are definitely stretches. He's less than a year old, so there's definitely stretches of time where I am just sitting in the dark, like in a completely quiet room, trying to help him get back to sleep or whatever the case may be. And I could bring out my phone and look on a doom scroll or look something up or put in headphones and watch a Netflix movie or a YouTube video or Twitch or something like that. But guys, I used to I used to do a lot of things I don't really do anymore. I used to read novels. I went to art school for fuck's sake. I used to draw. I used to write. I have skills that the average person, considers way outside of their limits creatively. And I'm not saying I'm really good at these things, but I can do them. But I haven't done them in years. And the reason why is because of these phones and technology and the access to it. And Jesse, that's why I was very interested in what you were saying is like your brain does not work in the format of technology because I don't think a lot of people's brains work in the format of technology. Like, I don't want to launch into another tangent, but there's all sorts of research that is starting to show or that has been showing over long periods of time that introducing technology into education has lowered kids' grades and their aptitude for learning. And I think that's happened to adults as well. It's definitely happened to me. So, what I try to do to prep is be bored. I try to put myself into situations, and it's very easy being the primary daytime caregiver for my son. I try to put myself in a situation where I have nothing to do but just sit there and think. And the boarder, the more bored I am, the better off it's going to be because it kind of resets me back into a position to I start thinking, how did the last game go, or how do I want this next game to go? And I picture what I want to happen next and I start to prep around that. So I start to say, okay, well, the player characters have the information about the MacGuffin. There is several different routes they could take. What happens if they go the first route? And I just let my brain just think through it and think through it and think through it and that's it's been amazingly helpful in order to start prepping for game. It's like, well, where do I want this session to go? What do I want them to do? How do I want this to look? How do I want this to sound? What kind of things do I want to happen in it? And I just let myself ruminate and let these ideas kind of like, use my imagination to have these things go places. And I've significantly reduced my screen time. I barely on social media. And I think my games are better off for it. It's kind of like a nebulous like answer, it's just like get yourself to a position of utter boredom and then start to use your imagination to figure out where you want your game to go and what you want to happen.
So the location for you is less important than the mental state, but some that's because you're home with your child named Lentinio Dorali. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, you pronounced it perfectly.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, I mean it could be anywhere. You like,
Mhm.
the brakes are shot on the car. I could have died, and then I got to take the car in, and I'm sitting in the waiting area to find out that this is going to cost money I don't have. And I'm just sitting there like I could eat. Like you look around the room, everybody's on their fucking phone.
Yeah.
Everybody's on their phone. We're just like amusing ourselves to death. We're distracting ourselves from everything that's around us, or we're distracting ourselves from what's happening in our heads. And maybe this is very like middle-aged person thing to do, but like this can happen anywhere. It's your fucking imagination. It's the foundation which D&D and all role-playing games
Oh
is
yeah.
built on. God damn
Yeah.
it.
The boredom thing, it's really funny. Like I had this French teacher in middle school named Mr. Freeman, and he had the thing that he said, which I always say to my daughter when she's like, I'm bored. When I'm like, can I use my tablet? We have this rule, like no screens before noon on the weekend. Like before you eat lunch, you are reading or playing with your toys or whatever. And
Nice.
sometimes she'll come up to me and be like, I'm bored. And I'm like, well, you know what my French teacher, Mr. Freeman, used to say, and she does now and hates it. It's if you're bored, you're boring.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
So,
There's a
like,
great 90s song too with that line.
there is.
Is it Flagpole Sitta? It's a great karaoke song. We probably did it at your birthday party.
You did do it at my birthday party, and
Just
to
once.
great effect. And yeah, I think this predates. This was the early '90s and predates Harvey Danger's hit Flagpole Sitta.
There it
So
is.
uh, yeah,
Well, poor Mr. Freeman had no idea what he was getting into when he said that because it's like we're afraid to be bored, you know?
Hmm.
yeah, it's like my tongue-in-cheek joke, not joke, that my phone's name is Dopamine Farm, and so like whenever it connects to any device or like on the console in my van, it's just like Dopamine Farm. Like yes. I'm not surprised though. Like one of the things I've always like good-naturedly envied about my good friend Matty here is his discipline when it comes to the creative process. Because I've seen him do this, like, just be like, this is my goal for this thing now. And then he does it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is astounding to me because I'm like, I have 1,000 good intentions and ideas. And
Yeah.
I was actually looking up at my Notion page in prep for this. And I'm like, I have 3 locations with 2 lines of text because this is what I meant by my brain's not organized for it. I am desperately seeking efficiency all the time. I talked
Hmm.
about this a little on the 2026 goals episodes about like I'm looking for the most efficient way to like do to run a game with like the minimal prep or whatever. So like I find this tool and I'm like, this is a good system. And I get about 30 minutes into it and I'm like, there's got to be a more efficient way. And then I get distracted from my prep looking for other tools to be more efficient about it. So I'm actually really proud of myself for like just focusing up enough to like map out the backbone I need for Mythic Bastion Land, which I will say the book has really, really great process. Like this is what you need to do to be ready to run a campaign. And so I
I mean,
did.
would it be possible for you to do the least efficient thing possible? Would it be possible for you to be like, the goal for my prep is to be as inefficient as possible?
Uh, I don't think
Like making
so.
a Roll20 campaign for a game that's only going to play like 3 actual sessions outside
Could
of
be.
character and ship creation.
Dude, I ported in like a third of the charms for Exalted Essence Edition into like hand typed them up. Like, because I like the technical challenge of making sure the system's going to work with itself if I ever do launch a campaign. Um, so it's just, figuring out how the tools work is where I derive a lot of the fun and prep.
Hmm.
Hmm.
That's a
Yeah, I
good
don't,
point. Prep should be fun.
yeah,
This
it,
is a
Yeah.
game.
I mean, Jesse, the reason why I'm asking is because that's essentially what I did is I was like, I need to document and structure everything, and that can come, I can add structure later with lazy DM stuff, flourishes, books and tools. I can use those later. I was in this mode where it was like, okay, I'm gonna write everything down or instantly put it in my phone, all the great ideas. And then it was like, but what if I didn't do that? Like, what if I just allowed the prep to happen in my head and think about it from time to time, and then whatever sticks, sticks, and whatever doesn't, doesn't, which is like anathema to me personally. Like, I want everything to be structured. I want to take 1,000 notes about the robe of the fucking sea prince, you know?
yeah. I mean, like I've literally gone to the point of like reaching out to like Jason Carl, the guy who ran LA by Night, like via like Twitter at the time, and being like, what do you do for prep? Like for a vampire game, and he's like, oh, this. I'm like, no, but like, what form do you use? Because this is my constant curse. Is I'm like, I need the most efficient form to fill out so I can do this in the minimum number of moves. And then I get like 20 minutes into, I'm like, fuck, I'm just filling out a form. Like,
Hmm.
so it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. What I really like, if I could up my game, it would be to have a slightly more organized system for writing the little cues I'm going to use to spin out a whole scene on the fly.
Hmm.
Which is one of the things I like about, I think, a lot of the old school Ascension dungeons have like basically 2 or 3 word room prompts at the top of the room. Because my old prep, when I started doing this, I mean, I think all of us were probably in the same boat, is like I would write out the text that I was going to read as the room description because that's the adventures that you got. That's
Yeah.
what you saw is like, oh, this is what I need to do to write an adventure or to write a session of play is I need to have like a key for this room. Um, and now with this Mythic Bastion land, like I have a little hidden note on a hex map, and then I have like 3 bolded phrases of like inspiration for that. And I'm just going to go and then see how the players react and what they add to it, which
Hmm.
is way more in line with my style, winging it and keeping the pacing tight. So
You should be winging it. Like, you know, I I want I will have evolved or leveled up in this because I'm also using prompts. I'm just giving myself more time to think about it in the moment. Now that I've let myself become bored over the week and think about things, when it comes time to run the game and describe the scene, I have a couple of prompts just to read right before I go into description, and then I would just start thinking about it and just let it come out of my mouth to into the microphone because we play online and just hope for the best. And I
Mhm.
will have achieved victory when you see me close my eyes and then start to take in the scene, and start to like describe things as they're happening in my brain.
so in a sense, when you are just able to just pick a place, any place,
They
and
taught
then
us how to do it, dude.
I went to the same art school as Maddie.
They taught us how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I get into the flow state, I'm, looking at my notes, seeing a sentence or two or some keywords, or just, an exciting title of the location or character or scene, and then it's unfolding in my imagination and I'm relating it.
Mhm.
I'm
Do you
not
get
usually
into
trying to just come up with stuff on the fly. It's just showing up.
do you get into a flow state while you prep flow possible with some of the spells in the Book of Erotic Fantasy?
And we're back. So, I was going to say about location, I have my desk with my four monitors, lots of desk space. Sometimes I even have my laptop as a fifth screen and second keyboard just to really mix it up. But if I can't get into the groove, then what Maddie talked about really hits, or what you talked about just like being in the car, being at work. If I'm doing something monotonous at work or on a long drive, boredom really is, underrated, when your mind starts wandering.
Yeah.
But I'll go for a walk, I'll sit outside and smoke the old tobacco pipe. Or what really works for me, because sometimes I can't get into the gear. Back when the local tea house had seating pre-pandemic, inside, I would just go in there and sit at the bar with my laptop, and there was casual conversation to be had, but no demands. So I could focus up or get just distracted enough that the ideas would stop. Because when people are talking to me, my brain's auto-completing things most of the time. And I'm like, you know, I think I know what you're going to say. I'm not usually right, but it feels like I know what's going to happen a lot of the time in my life, even though I'm often surprised. But that, my brain's trying to do 12 things at once, none of them well. But some of those layers are coming up with things for the next RPG session, or more often the last RPG session, because it's the, fresh fun in my mind. Anyways, what was the question you asked me? Because I feel like I digressed pretty hard there.
I just love the idea of this bearded dude sitting out like in a backyard with a pipe, plotting a world of adventure and magic or
It does the
science
trick.
fiction and spaceships.
You
Nicotine
just
is a
described half
nootropic
our
with no
audience.
downsides. Yeah.
True.
Now there's a good wine bar, in Film Row that is a great place to sit and come up with ideas and slowly sip some intoxicants. And one of the owners that runs it plays and runs D&D, so he's got some good stories, get him going.
Cool. I have been trying to be really like set an intention to like when I see or hear something in the media that I'm consuming, the fantasy or science fiction media I'm consuming. I've been trying to like set an intention to be like, I don't have to create as part of my prep from whole cloth the
Eh,
most wow scene. Like I am allowed to steal.
Oh,
oh
So
yeah.
man,
so
recommend it.
which doesn't come easy to me. Like I'll steal rules, I'll steal campaign frameworks, but actual like story beats or events, I'm like, no, I can't do that. It's not, it's like tracing. Uh,
Mm,
you know.
we all stand on the shoulders of giants.
So yeah, I've been trying to just happen today. Something came up in a book I was listening to. I was like, that's fucking cool.
Hmm.
I'm gonna steal that scene for something. And then, writing it down in my little notebook of random shit.
Hmm.
So, like
Yeah,
later, I'll
and
find this
fucking
note and
own
be
it.
like, "What was that?"
Fucking own it. Like if your group calls you on it, if they're like, "Oh, that's from Wheel of Time," you're like, "Fuck yeah, it is." And it was awesome there and it's awesome here and keep going. Like
Yeah,
if you're creating something that you're putting out into the world that is supposed to be 100% original, then do not steal, right? Or like what is the saying? Like a good writer borrows, a great writer steals. So steal that way, I guess. But don't
hmm,
plagiarize. But at the gaming table, steal everything you can and just own it. Like do that scene from fucking Star Wars. Do that magic system from Wheel of Time, like just take whatever you can. You'll be better off for it because that's the connective tissue that us nerds use. Like we're like, how many people have you known over the years of gaming that are just like can quote something from a TV or movie or a book, just one small line, and everybody's like right there with you. So like use that in your gaming sessions is what I say.
absolutely.
Yeah, the
I
scene that.
uh
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I stole the plot of Die Hard for a spin-off two-shot for some new players and the Warlock from my D&T house, long-running D&T campaign. And I had to explain to him, and most of them hadn't, at least half the group hadn't seen the movie. They were all, you know, 10 to 15 years younger than me. But yeah, you're in the Feywild in the city of Astrazalian in these crystal spires, and some organization, shows in with these wands of blasting and just starts taking everybody hostage and trying to loot the vaults of this the ruler's, magical spire. It was great. They had no idea.
Hmm.
And of course we diverged so much from anything that would be recognizable other than the bare bones outline of the plot.
For
Well,
sure.
I mean, a perfect example from the last episode we recorded. Like, I'm a huge vampire enthusiast, and like, we meet an NPC who's got Bram Stoker's Dracula hairdo, whose name is Captain Shrek, and I didn't put it together until the end of the adventure.
But
Or
Chris
like,
did.
yeah, or the red eyes flashed. I was like, whoa, shit. So, like, yeah, your players aren't gonna, they're not trying to catch you. They're not
Right.
trying to be like, that wasn't an entirely original idea. You're a terrible game mother.
Wait, now, is there a connection between Shrek and Dracula that I'm not catching?
The
Because
the
you all give
actor,
me
Oh,
way too much credit.
the actor that played Nosferatu in the original
yes.
Nosferatu, his name was Max Schreck, which
So
is the
when I
German
said
word for
Captain Shrek,
terror.
I was just excited because of the green ogre guy, who's like an
No, it's like
onion.
it's like S
I
C
was
H
not
R E
picking that
C
up
K. Yeah,
until I
it's
couldn't say a particular word. No spoilers.
Hmm.
I think that'll air before we were this airs, so I don't think it's a
Perfect.
spoiler.
Nope. This is
Well,
going out as soon as possible.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There's no buffer anymore.
Oh shit. Well, okay. Um, yeah, so I lost the thread talking about Captain Shrek.
yeah. Yeah, flow state. I have to sometimes go to completely new locations, take long walks, alter my mind. I find meditation is great. Like as soon as I stop trying to think about anything, I get some of my best ideas. It's simultaneously very useful and kind of annoying, but it works.
Yeah, I just need a 5% more discipline to write those ideas down so I don't lose them. Because I
Man,
feel
my
like most
Google
people,
Keep. Mm,
like, you get good ideas or at least interesting ideas all the
mhm.
time, and you think about them and consider them for a second, and you're like, oh, I should write that down. And then you don't. And then it's gone forever. So yeah, I just
I
a
use
little bit
Google
more
Keep
discipline.
extensively throughout the day to just add single lines to 100 of different notes, which I can then pull up on any of my computers or my phone.
Cool.
I recommend it.
Hmm.
Is there any software or apps, which are also software? I hate that we changed the name of computer programs to apps. Can't
Hmm.
even say applications anymore. Uh, I occasionally carry a notebook if I'm going for a walk and I don't take my phone, but not very often. But any digital things that you guys find useful that we can recommend or share with each other?
Well, because we're friends on Discord, I mean, I see when you're working because it tells me that you're in Scrivener. So, what's
Right.
Scrivener like?
So I used it for the D&T house campaign, but when that D&D game ended, I wasn't using it for that. I use it for my Thursday or now Tuesday night Waterdeep Nights game. But it doesn't have the one feature I got it for. Only the Apple version had it, which is auto linking. If I type the name of a entry, like a individual note, like a character name or a place name, I just want it to make a hyperlink to that within my notes. That's the only feature I really wanted, and it never got it in the Windows version. And I'm still mad, but I had been using it for a little while, so I just kind of stuck with it. So I don't know if I was writing a book, I'd probably like it more, but as a standalone piece of software, at least it only has a one-time purchase price as far as I know. There's no subscription. But these days, I just use Google Docs, and I make my own dang hyperlinks when I gotta.
Hmm.
The tools question is reminding me I have to cancel my membership on World Anvil because
Ooh,
when I was deciding to, after so long, to be charmed by Ginny D and then watching pointy
Yeah.
hat videos. Like they sold me on it, and I was like, wow, this is a very robust tool that, again, does not work with the way my brain
Yeah.
wants to
You have to really
enjoy
dedicate
this
yourself
activity.
to making it useful. I love Scabbard in concept. If you haven't ever seen Scabbard as a RPG campaign tracking tool, it's got so many cool features. I believe it also has the auto linking. I actually communicated with the creator briefly about importing my Scrivener files, but then I just never pulled the trigger because it is a subscription. As far as I know, it's either a one person team or a small team. And even though it looks amazing and I could theoretically put it to good use if I could focus up, right? Uh, I worry about, well, what, when they stop supporting it. I used software called Master Plan for fourth edition. That was really cool. And that creator stopped supporting it at some point, of course, because it's been so many years, right? But now I'm not even sure. I think I've downloaded and archived enough different versions of the software. I could still open my data files and export them if I ever wanted to revisit that. But it's a bit of a, I don't know, sunk cost. That's not the right term, but
Bit of a chore to get it working again.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah. I have the wreckage of a thousand good intentions across
hmm
multiple softwares. And just in case, they ever decide to sponsor us, like World Anvil is not a bad product. It just,
right.
like, I am at this thing where I'm like, I could detail out all of this, but I don't actually see any of my players going to this. So it being fully fleshed out in the way that software is kind of designed to help you do, I don't think is a resource my players are interested in. So why would I spend the time on it? Is kind of
hmm
the question I have. And I don't need that to run a session successfully. Um, so yeah, I don't need to keep track of everything.
What is your minimum threshold of prep and notes for a session, guys? What would you guys say?
15 minutes looking at the 5 sentences that I wrote in my notebook after the last game before I play.
Nice, nice.
Minimum
But you manage.
threshold, like,
Yeah, before you feel ready to run that game.
Oh, I've just given up on feeling ready.
yeah, I was gonna say,
Point.
I I'm never gonna be ready. That's kind of the fun of it. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like, I've tried to take this. I'm sure we can all identify with like your brain being this like massive beast that you're trying to focus and control into doing this task of creative gaming. But then if you just like unshackle it and let it go, and whatever happens, happens. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
If
I
you
run a bad
ungovern your
game.
cylinder.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would. What am I going to run a bad game? I've done that
Right.
before with 8 hours of prep. Like, so who gives a fuck? You
Yeah.
know,
So what you're
the
saying is if you free your mind, the rest will follow.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Fear of a
uh,
bad session is the game killer.
yeah. So I mean, my minimum threshold is like, I guess, do I feel good about running the game? Like, what's the vibes I'm experiencing? Like I mean, I start making playlists. I start looking for music to like listen to during like, like before game starts or like in certain situations. Like, do I have something in my head? Does that work for me? Like I'll make notes, sure, but like I'm probably not going to read them before,
hmm
like I have a whole tab in my Google Doc for the D&D 5e game that I'm running for the group. It's got like just lines and lines of stuff I'm supposed to do. And I go every time I go and I put those, I add a new line all the time. Oh yeah, totally do that. Jesse's character will, yeah, Jesse will respond to that. And I never do it because I don't need to, like, so maybe that's the process of taking thoughts and like putting them in a place and then just being done with them. I don't know. I
hmm
feel like I should be like really high right now, and I should just be like, you gotta free your mind, brother. Like, I feel like I became that guy, but
Yeah, and I think I think the one thing that we can't actually do is because of the volume of games we've run over the period of time that we have run games, like none of us is a novice GM, you know,
Right.
Mhm.
like there's, thousands of internet memes about novice GM, veteran GM. Most of them are pretty funny, but like to get there, it is just a series of like stepping on your own dick 1,000
Pretty
times and being
much.
like, I guess it actually doesn't matter that much. I'm not saying like I don't mean prep doesn't matter, but like being all up in your head about it and having the perfect
Mhm.
system and like volumes of notes, I don't think it helps you run a better game.
It
Like
doesn't
Right.
help me.
you got to reflect, identify like what works for you with the style of storytelling you like to do, and then like figure out the best way to do that. And all of us, I think we're all talking about slightly different approaches for how we are approaching this in general same activity. And it's
Mhm.
cool. It's cool to get to talk about different ways to do it. I do have one other thing I can add that I think I have more experience of because I do it more is just how to prep for like a pre-published adventure. I know,
Hmm.
Mhm.
Maddie, you hate doing that. I know, Chris, you steal chunks from 10,000 of them.
Mhm.
So, like for my adventure prep, like for the Dragonlance game, before I think about running one of these, I will read the whole thing, which is usually a pretty tedious chore because they are not written to be read in that order. Although I will say again, shout out to Shadow of the Dragon Queen, the Dragonlance one. That's the first one I ever read where I was like, oh, what happens next? I really want
Yeah.
to. Oh, wow. This is like, it had a narrative consistent that I was like, this is cool. And a lot of that was member berries for Dragonlance. I'm like, oh, this is how they're taking this thing from the Dragonlance trilogy and incorporating that theme in the adventure. How clever I am for noticing it.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I'll review the next like two or three keyed scenes. And then the other thing I'll also do for any game session is I'll think about what's likely to happen mechanically and double check with myself how firm is my grasp of those rules.
Oh yeah. I
Which
guess
is a
rules are important sometimes.
yes, it's a game and it has rules. And if you don't have rules, then okay, anyway. Uh, so like vampire, like I know the lore backwards and forwards, but like I'm relatively new at running Vampire 5th edition. And so if I'm like, there's going to be a social conflict in this, I will look back up the social conflict rules and be like, do I have enough understanding of this to help teach someone how to do it? Or,
Mhm.
like there's going to be a physical conflict. And luckily the rules aren't actually, this is skewed. I say this about every RPG. I'm like, the rules aren't. You heard me say this about Rollmaster. I'm like, well, once you read these like 30 pages, it's not actually that hard. And like, because my brain is fundamentally rewritten by these fucking things in a
Right.
way I
Hmm.
enjoy. Um, so yeah, I will also think of what rules I need and then double check I have a firm grasp on how to adjudicate those.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my minimum threshold is the lazy DM's steps, which I will
Mhm.
do before every game. And it's just that's just more of just like, crystallizing whatever's happened in my head over the week. Like review the characters. I mean, you should do that anyway. Like
It's my
refamiliar
favorite step.
yeah, refamiliarize yourself with the characters, and that'll help you like cater better to their needs and what your players want to do in the game, and like come make sure you got your secrets and clues and your locations, and like um the only thing that doesn't work for me is modeling NPCs after characters in fiction or real life people or celebrities or whatever. I have tried to do that and it never works. So but I still keep doing it. Like, oh, this character is just like this person from this book or this movie or whatever. It's the female version or the male version or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think that's the minimum threshold is I just quickly go through slide flourishes, lazy DM steps really fast, you know. If there's any holes, if I used a location or if there's a new secret or clue or whatever, I just quickly jot it down, no problem. And that's kind of just like the final test before the game starts is just like Yeah, you did the bare minimum. You're good.
Do you do anything to prep any of your NPCs? I'm curious because your NPCs seem pretty well fleshed out as people.
Yeah, well, that's because of what I've changed, though.
Okay.
You know,
It's
like
that
I'm
boredom.
Well, what I've changed about my NPCs now is I wanted to we've talked about it before, but I want to expand the social pillar of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, but I don't want to do so in a way that involves like a lot of new mechanics and rules. So what I was inspired by Blades in the Dark's use of clocks, so I'm like, I'm going to create social clocks for these key NPCs, and they have things that they need and want. And if they don't get those over the course of the adventure, they go cause trouble and make chaos happen in the world or whatever the case may be. And I make sure that they're all tied together. And so, like, I know these characters, anybody else in the town, like the Reeve. Like I don't know, didn't even write down what he looks like. I just know that he's at the jail but he's got a prisoner that this key NPC needs freed, and if the party doesn't get that person out of jail, then something else is going to happen, and it just kind of like helped create this background story and added personality to these characters because I know them, so instead of trying to create an NPC, a detailed NPC at the drop of a hat, I just basically try to tell the party, like, oh, I didn't really do much prep on this NPC. I don't know. He's kind of like this,
Hmm.
or she reminds you of this person. And maybe that's more of what I should do on the lazy DM scale of being like, well, it's kind of like Angelina Jolie's character in the movie Salt, which nobody has seen, but that's okay. Like just as an example, but like it's not a good movie. I don't know why I use it as an example. I should have continued with the Lady Hawk progression here. But that's the new thing I'm doing is like give me three NPCs, give me I'll write down I'll come up with their needs and wants. I'll make notes on that. I haven't checked them. I checked them once just to remind the party what they were. Otherwise, they were just sitting in that Google Doc, and it's like they're just kind of in the back of my head because I get bored and sometimes think about them.
Yeah.
Like,
How about you,
That's
Chris?
awesome. Wow. So, you mentioned us being experienced game mothers, and when I started, and before I'd played, as many games I had now, because I've really like escalated, over the last 6, 7 years, the amount of time I've spent prepping and running games. Because it used to be just one at a time most of the time, and now I've got like three or four or more going. Plus, I'm floating around the background. But there was no amount of prep that was enough
Yeah.
originally, and for the longest time. And over, I kept finding, well, I'm not using 60 to 90% of this. You know what I mean? I do believe there's no wasted prep because just thinking about it, being in the world, nailing down details, got me more enmeshed in the world and allowed me to get into that flow state during games more and to just pull things out. Even if it was something I'd thought of for another game years ago, like, well, it might come into the new zeitgeist for this new campaign. But things like Mike Shea and the Lazy DM did help me nail it down. And I went looking for stuff like that. Uh, there's a book called The Extreme Dungeon Master. I'll have to find my copy of that. Oh, I got here Tracy and Curtis Hickman, XDM. This was an early one
hmm
that made me think about how I was running and prepping games, and like really just paring it down to the exciting and interesting things. The boring details are way less important.
hmm
Cool.
But that process of just, over prepping and then slowly paring it down has got me to that point as a more experienced game mother where I can go into a game with not even all the steps, the 10 lazy DM steps. And he has a blog post and probably three videos about, just doing the ones that you need or picking the combos or adapting it for the style game you're running. So I almost always try and review the players, but even sometimes that's not the right one for that session or that arc, like maybe they're in a particular place that's informing everything and thinking about the different chambers they might enter or the different parts of this world they might explore will be the most informative thing. But also just inhabiting the world, throughout the work week or, when you're giving yourself some forced downtime
Hmm.
helps so much. Uh, Jesse, you mentioned running pre-written stuff. And for my Waterdeep Nights game, we played through Dragon Heist, and now we're doing Dungeon of the Mad Mage. They're about to go to level 12, I believe. And I don't know if you either of you have looked at how those books are laid out at all. I had to basically read them, not heavily detailed, but at least skim slash read the interesting parts. But then as I was running it, like every week, I was going through and like double checking, cross referencing. I'd have physical versions of those books, and I've bought them on D&D Beyond. So I'm doing searches on D&D Beyond for every time this drow house is mentioned in the book because they don't just give you all the details for House Freth or House Aviander, on a couple pages. They're spread out in sentences and paragraphs throughout the book. And do I have to follow those? No, but the experiment of writing pre-written stuff, I felt a little obligated to, overly obligated to, really. And I've learned to, relax a little bit, but still like we're playing this adventure and I want to kind of give them the experience. And of course, my experience will be different from anybody else running it or playing it, but it still feels like more work for me, at least with the way those books are laid out. I would not
Yeah.
consider them optimized. There's a lot of great stuff in there. It's interesting, but man, even if they just like had an insert for like each drow house that like mentions the areas the pages you need to go to, so you don't have to do all that work of collating. Because now my Scrivener doc for each of those houses has copy pasted every chunk of text about them. So I can see the story they're trying to tell because just reading through that book, it's not necessarily structured as coherent narrative, but there are stories in there. So if we're
Hmm.
going to experience our stories and I want to be informed by their stories, oh my God.
Yeah, a lot of them are like laid out and written, I think, with like each little chunk is like, here's a mini adventure that has this narrative thread that ties them all together. So they just
Mhm.
drop the bigger thread in there, but there's no overall thought about,
It helps me if I know where it's supposed to be going. Otherwise, we show up, 4 levels of Undermountain later, and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense with anything that happened when we were there, which I'm okay with changing stuff, absolutely. But like, it's nice to know where all these different threads are going, right?
yeah, it's to me, there's the challenge of unpacking that and figuring out how to do that. That's why running a mega dungeon is continually on my RPG
Yeah.
bucket list and why I have a stupid section of like mega dungeons. So like, you know, don't know if we'll ever run them, but hey, I might someday. Options there
Next year.
next year, yeah. We'll talk about that when I go through the goals I failed for 2026 on the 2027 episode. Well, cool. I really enjoyed talking about prep. Anybody got any final thoughts, or is there more
Yeah.
fertile territory to explore?
I don't think there's any more fertile territory. But I will say this, most of us are familiar with the idea of play to see what happens.
Hmm.
If you're the game mother, prep to see what happens. Have fun with it. Like running games is supposed to be fun, in my opinion. Playing Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games is supposed to be fun. And as the game mother, imagine if your prep was fun. Imagine if you
Hmm.
were like, I want to prep to see what happens. I want to figure this out because I'm a creative person. I play role-playing games. So like, what is this part of the world like? If they do find if they do find the MacGuffin, what would happen if it was slightly different in this way? What would happen if somebody else got ahead of them and got it first? Or what would happen if they were on a timer or if there was a curse or whatever? Just have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, prep stops becoming like this focused task you have to do and becomes this fun little activity that you get to do. And think about it like this. If you're a game mother and you're doing game prep and having fun with it in your head, like imagine all of the billions of people in the world that don't get to do that.
They're
Like
losing out.
You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna sound like the middle-aged guy here, so up yours, young people. But like, imagine how much, like how cool that is that you have something that other people in the world don't have, you know? And I don't mean to put them down, but like I know tons of people and they don't have the ability to just sit there and get lost in their own imagination and have a great time with that. And prepping for a game can help you, can do that for you. It can be like this strange drug you're addicted to. And imagine you could do that instead of doom scrolling on your phone and
Oh
getting
yeah.
pissed off. So that's my final thought.
Cool. Well, I think my final thought is just to kind of dovetail off of that is like the fun thing, my NPC prep, which has changed dramatically because of something we said on the podcast a while ago. I just remember being inspired by it. I don't remember what it was, but then being like, I'm going to have more fun playing my NPCs. So my NPC prep is fun for me now because
Yeah.
I come at it from what do they want? If they've never met this NPC before, what's their tick that I'm going to get to play at the table? And then what is the most reality TV show I'm not here to make friends thing I can say as this NPC? And like that's fun to think about. And then I get to do that in a game and be like, and here's this terrible person. So yeah, I don't know.
Hell yeah.
Make it
Yeah,
fun.
final thoughts. Absolutely. Like we get to delight our friends and preparing to do that, thinking about all the ways we can do that. And a couple of my favorite things to harp on is that piece of advice, you know, do stuff that you find fun, right? Figure out what will make you excited to run that game and prepare that, flesh it out a little bit or at least think about it. And then I highly recommend recording your sessions and listening to them the day of the next game because nothing gets me in the mood and gets me thinking about all the cool stuff that might happen than listening to what just happened and having it fresh in my brain. And to me, I mean, there's been many sessions of RPGs where that's all I really did, you know?
And as somebody who has taken Chris last name's advice and done that, I second that. Recording your games and listening to them the day of is like once you get over the initial like, oh my God, I'm a horrible person. I didn't give so and so the opportunity to tell me what their character was supposed to do when they went outside. Then the real magic starts to happen.
Hmm.
So I second that, Chris. Thank you very much for that.
Well,
Thank
I'm
you.
against it. I don't know. I did it. I did. It's fun. I don't do it all the time, but it definitely has value. Well, this has been the Jaunty Mantis. If you have a prep tip that you'd like to share with us, feel free to tell us about it. You can do that by emailing us at jauntymantis@gmail.com or reaching out on various social media threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, where we are Jaunty Mantis. If you liked what you heard, please feel free to leave us a review. It helps us out. Whether that's on here on YouTube with a comment, interact, tell us what you think in the comments below, or on iTunes if you're listening to the audio version or Spotify. And until next time, get out there and play some fucking role playing games and read the book of erotic fantasy.